He actually said the best line. He said, the one thing about a film festival, it's a great shot of vitamin B12 in the arse for any city. So with that, we went and
Well, thank you for having us to your office. You have quite a collection here. Would love to hear more about it. I mean, you and Nelson Mandela, how did that happen?
it was the first film festival, and you know, we were still digging out after 9/11, and you just couldn't like say, okay, we're doing a film festival. So we had to have something or someone come and say it's okay now to go celebrate. So Mandela had been here his first trip to New York when he got out of Robben Island, and we had done a fundraiser at the time for him. And Bob called him and asked him if he could come back again and help us open the film festival. And so we did. And
wow. So it was you, it was Robert De Niro, and Nelson Mandela at the
And Nelson Mandela, it was Mike Bloomberg had just been elected, so we did it on the back steps of Gracie Mansion. President Clinton came, Francis Ford Coppola, Barry Levinson, and Whoopi Goldberg, and Hugh Grant. He actually said the best line. He said, the one thing about a film festival, it's a great shot of vitamin B12 in the arse for any city. So with that, we went and...
And was it true? Did the city come to life after that?
It did come to life after that. It was kind of extraordinary. There were over 100,000 people that came back downtown. And it was pretty momentous. And I, of course, thought that was it. That was, you know, I was going to just go back to my day job producing and that we weren't going to be doing another festival. And here we are 23 years later.
Wow. Yeah. So the reception to that was so overwhelming that you got wrangled into doing it again and again and again.
Again and again. But I didn't realize that I'd signed long-term contracts with sponsors.
Okay, well that makes a difference too.
So that makes a difference. And then I also remember driving up the West Side Highway, the festival was over, because we did the festival in 120 days. And, you know, I no sleep. I was beyond exhausted. And driving up, my cell phone rings, and it's Bob, and he's saying, how come we didn't have da-da-da-da? You know, I don't want to say what the da-da-da is, but anyway, how come we didn't have da-da-da? And I said, well, because it's going to Cannes. He said, but it should have been with us. It's a New York movie. We should have had it next year. And I'm like, next year? You've got to be kidding. I can't believe it. But
and you were stuck.
I'm stuck. Here I am, 23 years later.
And it happens right around the same time as Cannes. I mean, it seems like it's Cannes. You know, you have,
well,
that's not Salt Lake, I'm blanking on the name of the other.
Well, Sundance starts it in January, and then, you know, it kind of goes on. There's South by. We used to be in April. Mm-hmm. We moved it to June when COVID hit. And we became the first festival out of COVID. We did kind of a hybrid festival. We were in parks and we're in a lot of parks.
Wow, so you did a festival though immediately after the outbreak of COVID in 2020?
Yeah, 2021, I think. Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. We canceled the first. We were canceled in 2020.
And then
the following year, a year later, we did the festival outdoors. People were still kind of afraid to actually go indoors, but we were able to, by the end of that festival, we were able to open up Radio City with Dave Chappelle and a film that he made, and then a great musical and comedy performance afterwards. And that was really the first big inside event that had happened in the city. So
wow,
that was
and
exciting.
A shot of B12.
That was amazing. People were so excited to be back together that I remember somebody like accidentally tossed red wine at someone, and instead of being pissed off, they were like, that's okay, everything's fine. I mean, people were just so excited to be together. So.
Perspective, yeah. And here you are with Barack Obama, Katie Holmes. Who are some of the favorite, most impressive, interesting people that you've met who've come to Tribeca?
Oddly, so see, there's a picture of this there's Nelson Mandela, and that's my daughter Isabella, and then this is Michelle Obama and my daughter Isabella. I think she's one of the most interesting people that comes to the festival is my daughter Isabella, because of how she's seen the festival change over the years since she literally was, this little baby. But so getting that perspective over all these years of what somebody likes and how they look at you and say, that again? That's boring. You did that.
So she's your harshest critic then?
Yeah, definitely my harshest critic.
One thing that I think a lot of people have a misconception about Tribeca is that it's just films, but you really do it all. I mean, you have games, you have podcasts, you've expanded the scope of the film festival so much. Tell us a little bit about kind of the reason for doing that and all of the different mediums that you're focused on now.
Because the world has changed. Yeah. I mean, look at how you entertain yourselves, how we consume content, how we consume stories. So games are amazing ways of telling nonlinear stories. Music videos have great stories sometimes, certainly the ones that we like do. You look at what's happened in television and with streaming platforms. So there's like amazing stories. And as a producer, I like to tell stories, whether I'm making a film or a mini series or a series or a short film. So why not embrace it all? And then also artists are pivoting too. So they're doing pieces in VR, in AR. They're doing gaming. It's a much more fluid way to kind of look at how artists approach the world and the stories they want to tell. And that's what we try to do at Tribeca, is bring all the artists and all different kind of storytellers under our big roof down here.
This year, understand there's going to be a new edition, NiroCon. Tell us a little bit about that. It sounds like great news for us super fans.
It's going to be amazing. I mean, it's really, what do you get Bob De Niro for a 80th birthday? And we decided to throw NiroCon. So there'll be some amazing pictures that he's been in. Quentin Tarantino is going to be here, and they'll be screening Jackie Brown. Billy Crystal will be here with Analyze This, and David O. Russell with Silver Linings Playbook. And then there'll be an immersive exhibition at Spring Studios, which is our main hub, and there'll be a lot of his notes, his old photos that have never been seen before, his scripts, and then later we're going to have some real fun with Bob. We're going to have a De Niro hero. There'll be the De Niro heroes. There are so many delis that all have their special De Niro hero. So there'll be a competition for the best De Niro hero.
Are you entering anything in the competition?
Oh no!
Okay.
No. He is my hero, so I don't have to do anything.
So artificial intelligence, just in the last few years, it seems like it's kind of changed everything, and it's certainly impacting the way that film is made. You have been involved in sort of figuring out how to adopt it. I know you've done work and even spoke at Runway AI's event. What is your take on how artificial intelligence is changing film? How do you think it's going to impact the way that we watch movies?
Well, AI has been used in movies for years. Jurassic Park had a lot of AI in it.
Oh, that wasn't real? Okay.
It was. Anyway, so I think that part of what we're trying to do at the festival is show how AI can be used. I think there's a lot of fear about it, and you kind of fear what you don't know. I think it will change. There are definitely things in terms of productivity and how quickly we can go on certain things, just even when you're in production and, breaking down scripts and locations and day out of days, that kind of stuff. I don't think it's going to, I think, people are concerned about jobs and, and that's something obviously we're all concerned about, but I think it will also be about creating new jobs. And just because you know, if you're a VFX editor, you're still going to be a VFX editor. You'll just have new tools to play with. And I think that's exciting. So we have a lot of different programs about AI, and it will be interesting. I think it will be a learning experience for all of us. But I always like playing with new tools that can help us tell our stories in the best of ways.
So you're thinking of it at this point more as a tool. I mean, do you think we'll ever see a film that's completely soup to nuts AI, with AI actors and AI scripts and everything being AI generated?
You know, never's a long time, but I think that, yeah, that will probably happen. You have a movie coming out with Robert Zemeckis' new movie that Eric Roth wrote, and it's Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, and that's with face swapping, and how they and actually it's more of the aging in it, and how they did that, which is all AI as I understand it. You know, it's going to be used in ways that are unexpected. Hopefully it will be used in ways that are ethically and morally acceptable, and that if you are switching out things, you're going to know that they are, and you're not going to be having a lot of fake news out there.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, fake images can be anywhere, news, movies, etc. So Francis Ford Coppola, who I know you know, he just created a movie that cost, I think, $120 million. He put his own money in there. He's one of the greatest directors of all time, and yet he's struggling to find distribution for that film. What do you think that says about the state of the industry, and do you think he will find distribution, or do you think this is sort of underscoring a problem that we're going to continue to see?
We've always had that problem. It's not a new problem. I think what you have so many films in the marketplace, and there are so many different platforms, and you know, it's the audience's choice, it's the consumer's choice, and with so many that you know, and with so many filmmakers out there, and anyone being able to create, it's you know, it's changed a bit. But Francis is an extraordinary filmmaker, and I do believe that it will be screened in IMAX. Don't know what exactly is happening with the distribution for that deal, but I'm sure that film will get distribution.
Certainly, but I mean, it does seem to show that content is being thought of so differently today, right? Because so many people, it seems like now, are making things for Netflix or TV shows instead of focusing on these incredible cinematic feats.
It took us 10 years to get Irishman made. Yeah. And we ended up doing that for Netflix, and it was out in theaters, but it wasn't out in the traditional chains. It was out in, you know, all the independent theaters, and Netflix had put that together for us. It's clearly, you know, look, the business is changing. How many times have you been to the movies lately?
It's been a while.
Okay, but you've watched movies.
Yep.
Okay, and so look, we're all consuming, you know, we're all consuming things, watching things differently. How we get our news, how do you read the New York Post?
I get the paper copy.
So
how about you?
I get the paper copy
good,
too.
okay.
But there's a ritual to that. Okay, but not everybody.
Wait, tell us about your New York Post ritual.
My New York Post ritual is I get the paper. I get the New York Times and the Post every day, and the New York Times kind of tells me a certain thing of a certain point of view. And the Post tells me what I've got to know in the city, you know, what I've got to know. And a number of times I have to read it defensively. But other than that, but it's great. I love my New York Post.
I'm so glad to hear that. What I said in my interview is I said people have to read some publications. I'm not going to name them. People want to read the New York Post.
Oh, absolutely. And, come on, between the Knicks and the Rangers right now, suddenly I start reading the Post from the back cover.
Well, since you brought up James Dolan, obviously big Knicks guy, you have done a lot of work with him, but also with the Sphere. And we've been talking a lot about different mediums. That obviously is a very new medium that I believe you've created specific content for. Do you think we can see more of those kinds of venues coming here? Do you think that it's representative of the fact that we're going to consume content in so many different formats and mediums?
It's certainly a new medium, a spherical format with the most extraordinary sound going, and enough seats for 17,500 people, and so
it wouldn't accommodate everyone who's coming to Tribeca.
Not even. There's still more people that come to Tribeca. But that said, not the venue for independent film necessarily. I think immersive experiences and what Jim has done with the Sphere is really quite extraordinary. It's amazing for the dead are currently there. It's amazing for the sound is extraordinary, and I hope he'll build more spheres. You never know, but I hope so.
It sounds like you're creating immersive experiences, not necessarily like that, but here with Mercer Labs. What does that look like?
That looks like it's a number of artists who we've worked with before, and mostly their work has been in VR in a headset, and now we've taken it and we've reworked it with Mercer Labs, and more people can walk through the experience and see something that is a bit different than the way you would view it in a viewfinder.
Yeah, interesting. So New York, it seems like a few decades ago, was really a center, not just for production, but also for producing. You had legitimate movie executives who were here. You had Lionsgate, Miramax, obviously, which is no more. And yet it seems like recently a lot of that power has sort of shifted back to LA. Do you think that there still is that sort of culture of people who are packaging, producing, creating that content the way there used to be? Or do you think we have seen that mostly go back to California?
Look, after COVID, what office you were in didn't seem to matter. You could be on Zoom anywhere. And so where people are based isn't necessarily as relevant as it once was. The shift between New York, the industry, media going between New York and LA has gone on for years and years and years. And, Lionsgate is or isn't here. I don't know. I think they do have an office here. But Netflix opened up an office, and Netflix opened up a studio. So it's, it shifts, and that doesn't, New York is one of the greatest places to shoot movies. We've got like an amazing backdrop, and the one thing about shooting in New York is you can make New York look like anything.
Yeah. Over the last few years, there's been some new sort of standards and quotas unveiled as part of various DEI initiatives. Some filmmakers feel that is a little challenging for them as they think about content that they want to produce and create. Do you think it's a limitation, or what do you think of some of these new requirements that are imposed, mainly to be qualified to win an Oscar and whatnot?
On the qualifications to win an Oscar, I can't really speak to that. On the fact that as an industry, we have to support diversity that should look like our society. And certainly when we were working on, I was working with Ava DuVernay on and producing When They See Us, we wanted to ensure that our crew looked like the city that it's from, and so certainly supporting more women behind the camera, and BIPOC. I mean, you want to support people to make great stories, and our stories it's the support of, it's supporting people who are telling new stories and bringing other opinions into our culture is a new, we'll get a different creative slant to it. But it's also, when you go into a movie, you hear things, you learn things, and you might actually digest a different point of view than you would if you were in a school lecture or listening to a politician or watching MSNBC or Fox or whatever your proclivities are. So it's the way it has to be. Mm-hmm. You have to have, we have to do it. Otherwise the Academy looks, like a world that you don't want your kids to inherit.
Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Ha.
I'm here with Karen Seidman-Becker at Clear headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for coming.
This is a stunning office. I can't wait for everyone to see the view. Little island. It's stunning. So, how long have you been here?
We've been here for a year and a half.
Okay.
We took the space over during COVID, knowing we wanted people to come back to work and give them something very different than they had in their living rooms.
You're a very proud New Yorker. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I do love New York, so the saying is true. My grandparents are originally from Brooklyn. They came over to Ellis Island and ran a hardware store in Brooklyn. My parents left New York and moved to DC, where they worked for the government. I was raised in Maryland, but every time I came back to New York, I loved the energy and the diversity and the absolute joy that was part of the city. And then I went to University of Michigan and I graduated and I came to New York without a job, felt like working girl and let the river run, banging the doors down for a job, and got one and never left.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about Clear, because this is an idea that you had over a decade ago and you've been building this, I think, for 14 years now?
14 years, time flies when you're having fun. I'm obsessed with customer experiences and leading a frictionless life. I'm a working mom of 3, and all I want to do is, fly through the world, getting as much done as you can, creating 36 hours in a 24-hour day. And 9/11 was also really game-changing for me in both knowing people who lost their lives there and feeling that you have a responsibility to make the world a better place and to make it safer. And I always said I didn't want to die and have people say I pick good stocks, which is what I used to do. So started Clear to be a secure identity platform, making experiences safer and easier physically and digitally. It never made sense to me that you're pulling all these cards out of your wallet to prove who you are and what you have access to. Biometrics can absolutely do that, did that in other parts of the world, and did that in the defense area in the US. So we believed in the consumerization of it and started in travel and believed it had so many other applications, and that's what we're doing.
Well, at the time, and even now, I think people are still getting accustomed to biometrics, to having their retina scanned and their fingerprint used to identify them. So how have you gotten people to feel more comfortable with that technology? And how have you seen it evolve even in the last 14 years?
So we were right that consumers now do love and trust biometrics when they trust your brand, when they feel like their privacy is protected, and when they feel like they're getting something for it. When we started Clear, there was no Touch ID or Face ID on an iPhone. But I do think that was really helpful for consumers to feel like, I trust this, it works for me, and I'm in control of it. And I think those are the really important things. But if you are having a more frictionless experience, if you are having a safer experience, and if you trust the company that is helping you do this, and you are really transparent on privacy, on data security, then I think good things happen, and you're seeing that again and again. But it's super important to keep building that trust and to keep building the use cases.
I think when people hear Clear, they think of the airport, but obviously you do more than that. I understand you're looking to expand well beyond even just concert venues, airports. What does the future look like for you guys?
So travel was the obvious place to start in a post 9/11 environment. It's where customer experience, security, and identity absolutely collided. But you are seeing that in so many other places. Think about the clipboard in healthcare, right? You're filling out the same information every time to prove, who you are in your electronic medical record. That makes no sense. You're taking out your driver's license to get into a building where they take a picture of you, then they give you a sticker, then Makes no sense. You do that also to get into a hospital. Financial services, you're filling out information, you're doing all sorts of KYC. There's safer and more frictionless ways to do that. And then on the consumer front, you think about social media, you think about trust online, you think about the shared economy, you think getting alcohol delivered to your house. There's different pieces there of who you are and what you should have access to. So the whole thing here is identity matters. Those are all places where Clear is expanding and playing and making a real difference in consumers. Travel's a major part of what we're doing. Travel's hard and getting harder, and so many opportunities for innovation to change it. And these other areas, they are here and now issues. When whole companies are going down for days on end, think in the gaming space and the healthcare space, you know that we need to make a change.
Yeah, actually, I do want to touch on the technology. Would you consider yourself a tech company? What is your role in creating some of these new biometric technologies?
I consider Clear a tech-enabled company, right? We're about the customer experience and making it safer and easier, serving our members and our partners. And we are not creating our own biometric algorithms. We're always looking for the best. We're creating software over that and connecting it all together. And so, sort of like Intel Inside, you always want to find some of the best technologies to make sure that you're always evolving, and then we build our own technology over that. So that's why I think of us as technology enabled. I also think when you're putting the customer first, it's like, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and what's the technology that you're going to bring to solve that? When you look at some of the issues of late, calling into a call center and pretending that you're someone that you're not to get credentials to get into a system, the front door, Clear's launched a verified account recovery product, which is getting great traction in the market in order to ensure that you are you and they're giving credentials to the right people, right? That's identity mattering. And that's
I think that's going to be a huge issue with AI, too.
It's absolutely a huge issue. I used to say I really believe in voice biometrics. I now think that's a little harder, but you do want multi-factor authentication, right? Face and liveness and lots of other things behind it, and I think you have to continue to stay in front of these things.
Interesting. So creating a lot of the software, sourcing a lot of the hardware, and then connecting with the customer.
We build our own hardware, and so our NV pods are us putting it together because we want it to be great for our customers. And there's all sorts of things, from getting the right camera to getting the right hardware and making sure that you have the right document authentication technology. So we're not making the camera, right? But we are putting it all together ourselves to serve our purposes.
I do want to ask about TSA. We have to address that because that's where people know Clear most, is the airport. And you now have 23 million customers. So tell us a little bit about how the operations are going there and what the customer experience has been like.
So first and foremost, we're obsessed with the customer experience. To me, it's everything, and knowing that you can delight people and make it safer was really part of the genesis of Clear. All that being said, in 2023, the customer experience did not consistently meet our extremely high expectations. And we launched Next Gen Identity, which added to the challenge. We upgraded millions of people in a short period of time to Next Gen Identity, which is the unlock for great technology and automation that you're seeing now to enhance the customer experience and scale it. And so that's really important. But we look at member experience scores every single day. They took a dip in 2023 at the beginning of 2024 and have been climbing steadily out. So what you're seeing with our new technology is IDs are staying in pockets, our systems are faster, we've launched new technology. You'll see these handhelds to transmit digital identity. And so we're really working hand in glove with TSA at the local level to transmit digital identities to enhance safety and the customer experience. And we're all over it. And as you look at this year, as we launch Lane of the Future, you're going to see lanes that look a lot more like what you see in places like Dubai and Tokyo, with e-gates, with handhelds, face-first technology. So you talked about fingerprints and eyes. We're moving to face-first. We have it on mobile. It'll be in lane, which means you don't really break stride when going through. And so with 1 million more people coming through airports in 2030, on top of the 3 million and change that you're going to see over Memorial Day, you've got to launch this innovation. It's crucial to enhance the customer experience, enhance security, and it's really everything.
Yeah, I do have to ask too about, because United has unveiled a digital ID, Delta has unveiled a digital ID. Does that threaten what Clear is doing at the airport, or how are you viewing that?
We always expected biometrics to go mainstream. Go back to 2010. I'm kind of surprised it's taken this long for biometrics to come in payment. People are talking about biometrics in mobile voting in places, and to come to the airport. It has to be everywhere. It is the answer to safety and customer experience. And so touchless pre-check is a great thing. That's what Delta and United and other airlines will be doing, which means you're using your face as opposed to your driver's license when you're a pre-check member. We love pre-check. We've launched pre-check, so you can enroll in pre-check at ClearPods or renew online. And so we think that technology is a really good thing, but it's a feature, not a customer experience. And so what we're focused on, both in the airport and beyond the airport on home to gate, is driving a frictionless customer experience. I know that's what I want. I think that's what your readers want. It's what New Yorkers want. There's 64 million people coming to New York City this year, most of them through airports. They want a frictionless experience. They want to know, with Clear's Home to Gate app, you can know when to leave your house to get to the gate 40 minutes ahead because we've put together travel the Clear Lane, and then how far the walk is, right? If you're at the end of JFK Terminal 4 versus the beginning, that's a big difference. I want that information. We're piloting things like bag drop in Denver, or an ambassador meeting you at your car through the app. There's so many things to do to create this predictable, universal, frictionless experience. And that's what we're focused on. And biometrics are a piece of it. So is mobile technology, right? And so I think it's an incredibly exciting time. But travelers should expect, and quite frankly want, biometrics throughout their airport journey everywhere.
Interesting. So walk us through too a little bit more about the lane you said is being unveiled. I have not seen this yet, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this haven't either. So what does that look like? Walk us through the handheld devices, what that experience is going to feel like.
So it's coming out in phases. If you're in if you're in any of the LaGuardia today, you will see a handheld transmitting a digital identity, a mobile driver's license, from a Clear handheld to a piece of TSA equipment. Your ID never comes out of your pocket, but that's digital identity and the transmission of it and connecting the two systems together. You see handhelds at the top reading boarding passes. What you will see is what we're calling NV pods, which is enrollment and verification put together, in the lane later this summer, which is face first, so no more fingerprints and eyes. It was the right way to start. I think it's harder than face, and I think people have become very accustomed to face and having a unified experience in our mobile platform, whether you're doing it on LinkedIn or checking in at Wellstar or in the airport. You should have the same experience. So those are some of the things, as well as at the top of the lane, what we're very excited about is to bring e-gates and automation there. And so again, what you want is automation. It enhances security. It drives scale and customer experience.
So, I mean, a year from now or 2 years from now, are you envisioning something where somebody can literally just walk through? What do you think we can expect to see in the next couple of years?
I think you won't be breaking stride. I think e-gates, I think continued integration with biometrics between Clear and the Department of Homeland Security and TSA are really important to drive scale and never breaking stride. I would also say it's on either side. So if I know that I'm getting to the airport at 6:10 and I can have a Clear ambassador. Everyone loves Clear ambassadors. They love our technology. I think they love our ambassadors more for people who say, welcome back. Hundreds of ambassadors in the New York City airport serving almost 3 million Clear members in New York City, right? It's what you come to expect. But if they could meet you at your car, if they could help you drop your luggage, I do think, why are you waiting for your luggage on the carousel? Couldn't you opt to have it delivered to your hotel or your home, right? That's taking time out of the entire trip and making it truly frictionless. So I picture you, dropping your bag, coming through the Clear Lane. You can do that in Denver today, potentially triggering your coffee order so you don't have to wait in line. You can grab it and keep walking and walk onto your plane. An experience where you never break stride, where you have control and predictability. That's when I think technology is used for good.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very appealing. I would love to have somebody hand me a coffee as I'm getting on the airplane.
But when you think about all the fragments of a trip,
100%.
It's too many, and you can use technology. What if you could reserve your parking spot, right? Like, it should be predictable and frictionless.
Are these different tiers potentially that you would be selling for a Clear member? Just obviously, I would imagine it costs more for somebody to have their luggage delivered than it does just for the option of having your face scanned.
I think there will be different tiers or transaction pricing, right? So you could pay for certain things on a one-off basis. You also start to think about We invested in a company called Landline, where you could be picked up and screened at a sterile place off airport on a secure bus and be taken to the back of the airport, right? So there's again, this happens in other places and is actually starting to happen here in the US. And so there's different ways to drive security, enhance security, use technology, and delight customers.
Well, we love surprise and delight. So I am curious though, because in the US, it does feel like we're a little bit behind when it comes to this. And I also think, during COVID, we were pulling out little pieces of paper, and even that's what we have with our license today. It's literally just a laminated piece of paper that we're showing. It feels very old school, just like it was showing your little vaccine card. Why has it been so slow to adopt these technologies when it seems like other countries are very eager to use them and do so pretty efficiently and pretty well?
I think that's a great question. I always like to study Estonia. It's the most digital economy. All 1.6 million people there are sort of biometrically enrolled at the beginning, and there's so many efficiencies that come from that. I think the time is now. And so even you look at, I agree with you on COVID, but we started Health Pass, right? Mm-hmm. So connecting your identity on a mobile phone to your lab results or to your vaccine results directly, and then connecting that to OpenTable on your dinner reservation or to the Las Vegas Raiders to get into the game. So I think innovation is accelerating. I think more people are asking the question you're asking that we were asking 14 years ago. And also, I think trust and safety is becoming a bigger issue, right? So when you see something like what happened to MGM and it's going down for days on end, I think the sense of urgency might not have been there before, or the products were not ready. The technology is ready. There's trusted companies doing it. The problems are here and now, and the sense of urgency, I think, is driving that. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing that in healthcare. We're seeing that in the hospitality industry. We're seeing that online. There's a lot of laws calling for, age verification for kids on social media.
Yeah.
So I do think if you sort of take a step back, the sense of urgency is building, and I think the digital transformation that you'll see over the next few years is going to be game-changing.
Interesting. So obviously a lot of potential partnerships for Clear. I would imagine it sounds like potentially with social media companies. You mentioned there's laws being passed that children under a certain age can't be on social media. What kind of conversations are you having right now with other companies?
So we've publicly announced partnerships with LinkedIn, which we're almost a year into, which has been going phenomenally well and has gotten great adoption from their user base. Partnered with Wellstar in healthcare for check-in, partnered with public.com for online fintech. We're partnered with a large retailer to reduce fraud in their stores. You start to think about the physical shopping experience, and that needs to be safer and easier when you go to a drugstore now.
How would that work?
Sure. So a few ways. Interestingly, a company like Costco, right, already asks you for a card to get in, right? They're looking at identity or a form of identity in terms of membership, and they have a very low fraud rate because of it. But you look at what's happening at drugstores. You could use your face, which generates a QR code, to unlock, a glass door where you could get your Tylenol or your Sudafed, as opposed to calling for associates. If you're renting equipment at a retailer where they're asking for a driver's license, where you're signing contracts and having to put down payment, verifying and authenticating your identity through Clear and connecting that to the retailer is safer and easier. And so we're seeing real results when doing that.
Yeah. Other applications we haven't talked about for Clear?
So many.
Okay. If there's any that pop to mind, we want to hear them.
We'll keep you posted.
Okay.
The U.S. has a goal of adding 1 million electric vehicle chargers in the United States by 2030. We are here today at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where we're speaking with Nathan and Tia, learning how they are making that happen. The U.S. has ambitious goals to make 1 out of every 2 cars electric by 2030. One of the big challenges, of course, is where you charge those electric vehicles, and that's where our guests today come in. Nathan and Tia had a very interesting and innovative idea about how to do that. So take it away. Take us back to COVID when you first thought about this idea.
Great, yeah, so we live in Brooklyn. We live in an apartment. We live on the ground floor, and we don't have a garage or a driveway like most New Yorkers. And we also never had a car before COVID, but during the pandemic, the idea of public transportation became really challenging in terms of safety, in terms of pre-masks, pre-vaccines, how we can move our family around safely. So we started looking at getting a car, and I'm an environmentalist, so I compost and I recycle, and I thought I should get an electric car. But in 2020 in Brooklyn, there is quite literally no place to charge it. And it's not much better today. So we wanted to look at why that was happening, and we found out pretty quickly that every EV charger that's being deployed in dense cities needs to connect to the utility. And this is incredibly time-consuming, incredibly expensive. So we invented a charger that doesn't require that at all. We power our chargers from buildings.
And I understand too, it's not just that you're using that electricity, but you have kind of an interesting idea where you're also revenue sharing with the people whose property you're on. How does that work?
Exactly. So why would a building let us do this? Why would they let us power a charger from what's known as spare capacity in their building? And it's because we rev share back with them. So we're just basing a little 8-inch by 8-inch charger in front of their building on their curbside, and they're earning potentially thousands of dollars per year, offsetting their annual electric bill, putting money in their pocket, all passive income, and their electric bill never even goes up because we separately meter the use of our electricity that's used by the charger.
Yeah, and I mean, this technology, it seems like you've adapted it and created it really quickly, and you're already placing it throughout the city.
Yeah, I mean, that goes to Nathan's background in building things in cities, in challenging environments. I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, my background is in architecture, and we see EV charging as not really a transportation problem, which it is, but it's also an urban design problem. It's also a construction problem. So when you build things in cities, you need to figure out how you can bring in all the stakeholders, so how you can move things through permitting, so how you can design things so it can be easily deployed. And that's really our strategy. The hardware itself and the business model of connecting with the private building owners really sort of smooth out a lot of those permitting issues.
I mean, it's interesting because it seems like the city would want to encourage as much innovation and encourage these charging stations to be everywhere. But at the same time, it's sort of infamously filled with red tape. So how has that been? Have you been able to rely on the city to help you, put these devices throughout, or how is that relationship working?
I mean, urban charging, and especially curbside charging, is kind of the final frontier for electric vehicle charging in the United States. 85% of drivers will charge their vehicles at home. That means that they have a garage or the driveway that they can plug into every night. So as easy as it is for anyone else to go home and plug your phone in and wake up with a full battery, that's the analogy you want to think about for vehicles. But for drivers that don't have that, you need to basically park in street and then also charge in street. So we're really lucky because New York City is one of the more innovative cities. New York City is one of the more innovative cities in the country.
Like a tongue twister.
Exactly. We're editing, right? They're spearheading massive innovation in this space. California is, of course, ahead of everyone because of their climate policies that are really leading the way for other cities to then follow mandates, including New York State following California's mandate of banning the production of new internal combustion engines after 2035. So we're all in this funnel towards electrification across our transportation, across our buildings, and across the built environment. So as much as red tape and bureaucracy can be difficult, we're really lucky because both our city and our DOT are really leading the way in terms of how we can deploy this charging infrastructure across the 5 boroughs, not only quickly but with equity, which is really important because we want to make sure that there's chargers not just where there's 5 Teslas parked on the block, but where there's no Teslas, because without that infrastructure, no one is going to be able to make their next vehicle electric, especially when vehicle costs start to drop down. We're looking at a world in which we're going to be able to purchase an EV for under $15,000 in the next couple of years.
So understand that you have deployed on private property, which is obviously appealing because you can revenue share with those residents, but are you also on city property, and where all are you deployed?
Exactly. So we are starting a rollout of a multi-hundred charger deployment across multiple cities in the US this year. As I said earlier, curbside charging is the final frontier. It's an area that people are still troubleshooting and figuring out, and we're helping cities figure that out together. We have deployed on private property, and we rev share, but we also rev share when we deploy on public property. Curbside is, basically a gray area. It's not quite one person's territory or the other, but the buildings are responsible for that little bit of sidewalk that they own in front of that building. They can't put anything they want there, but when we get a city's permission, we're working to enable them to put that EV charger there, which we then permit, we install, we operate, we maintain, and they just get that passive income. This becomes a public charging spot where anyone can park and charge their vehicle 24 hours a day. And this is allowing for cities to help transition all cars to becoming electric. And we started actually working with New York City Economic Development Corporation in a very early pilot of what we call cars powered by buildings, where we needed to use a city asset to test this idea. And this was, going back almost a year and a half ago to April 2023. We approached the EDC. We said, we have this concept. We think it's going to make a big impact for cities. Will you work with us to let us use your city assets to deploy this? And they said yes. EDC likes to call themselves the agency of yes, which is kind of awesome. And so we worked with them to deploy our very first pilot here in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Army Terminal, and that was on private property. And that sort of started the entire sort of snowball effect of what we're now experiencing today, where this very simple idea of just connecting a charger to the building's power source is now this sort of no-duh for every other city that we are then starting helping to roll out in all these different municipalities.
Yeah, I've heard you liken it previously to a fire hydrant, essentially, where it should be part of infrastructure anywhere you go. So how much does this cost, and who's paying for it?
Well, I mean, the headline is that it's free. So we've designed
We like to hear that as taxpayers.
Exactly. There's no cost to the city. There's no cost to buildings. At the end of the day, It's Electric is a climate company, and we are here to help everyone transition to clean transportation. And we're not going to get there if there's any kind of barrier for entry. So we went really bold with our proposition to say that we're going to make a charger that's completely free for everyone.
Where are you getting the money, though? No, you're totally fine.
So, about 25% of drivers in the United States don't have access to a driveway or garage. So they're parking on city streets. Those drivers every year spend $150 billion on gasoline. And that revenue, we're slowly going to begin to take away from the fossil fuel industry and earn revenue from the chargers from those same drivers. And that's how we earn money. It would be, asking cities to pay for EV charging infrastructure is sort of like imagining the fossil fuel lobby was saying, help us, install gas stations. We don't think that it should be a purely publicly operated and funded thing. We think that as a private company, we can earn the revenue from the drivers, displace that money that's going to fossil fuel companies for clean transportation.
I see. So it's kind of like when they were building the railroads, you had private companies who were trying to build out.
Yep.
And whoever did that essentially won this race. So is that what you would liken the EV charging stations to today? And who are your other competitors in this space?
Yeah, I mean, the railroad analogy is a really strong one because we are undergoing a once-in-a-lifetime transition within transportation, right? In the same way that we're doing this now, there's generations that have, we call ourselves basically the next generation of EV charging. The generation before us really tried to replicate the gas station model, which isn't really synonymous with how you charge an EV. Charging EV is really most like plugging in your phone at night. You just need that outlet. You don't need to go like this and then basically pump fuels into a tank. So even the fact that all of these other companies have effectively machines that look like gas pumps that just move atoms doesn't help us deploy chargers the way that they need to be deployed. You really just need a socket to plug into, and that's effectively that infrastructure that we're putting out there. So it's a whole new way to think about charging. It's a whole new world when you never have to even go to a gas station again. You just literally are charging at home every night.
Right now, today, 85% of EV charging happens at home. So those people who have driveways or garages, they come home at night, they plug their car in, and they wake up every day with a full battery, again, like your phone. And
Mostly they aren't New Yorkers. So.
And mostly they aren't New Yorkers, right? And so there's an equity question here about who has access to charging. Are EVs just going to be a product for people who can afford to have their own driveway and garage, or do we really want to be equitable about access to that kind of luxury of overnight charging? Because if you do have that place to plug in at night, then you really do never have to go to an EV gas station, unless you're doing like a road trip or something like that. And so it's a much more convenient way of life. Actually, a lot of EV drivers who have that driveway or garage are like, this is great. I never have to worry about fueling my car. I just plug it in every night, and it's done. I have a full tank of electricity every morning. And so we should be providing that same sort of infrastructure to drivers that don't have that off-street parking.
And how are those conversations going? Are you approaching individuals, companies? I mean, that's a pretty big lift.
For the drivers?
Well, you're talking about deploying EV chargers, arguably probably in thousands of places per square mile, right?
Yeah. It's really funny.
And how many do you think how many EV chargers do you think that we'll need?
Oh, well, the White House, the Department of Energy, NREL have predicted and said that in order to make this transition, in 6 years we need 1 million public level 2, those aren't fast chargers, those are level 2 chargers, the kind that we provide, chargers in the United States in order to help this transition occur. For comparison, we have actually 100,000 in the country right now. That's like macro number. My micro number here in New York City is that New York City DOT has put out 100 public level 2 curbside chargers, and they have the ambitious goal of going to 10,000 in the next 6 years as well. So we're going from a 10x to a 100x scale from our micro to our macro in order to meet these goals. And we have to, because we're all doing this because we are facing a climate crisis, and this is something that we need to be aware of. We're less than a year away from our goal to cap all greenhouse gas emissions. And we need to pull every lever that we can. And the great thing about transportation is that it is a lever that people like you and me can pull.
And that's something that we're trying to just make it the easiest possible choice for people to do. Because the biggest barrier right now when people are considering an electric vehicle, and the reason that they don't make that purchase when they've already decided they're getting a new car, the reason why they do not go to electric is because they literally have no place to charge in a city.
And tell me a little bit about your investors, because I know you said this doesn't cost taxpayers money, this doesn't cost the city money, so I've got to imagine you have some people who are very passionate about what you're doing and willing to spend some money to make it happen.
Absolutely. So we are definitely in the world of being a startup, but what differentiates us is that we are really looking for investors that have a thesis either in climate or in what's called an underrepresented founder group. I'm a female founder, Nathan is a male founder, and so actually the fact that we are combined genders puts us in a category where we get less than 2% of all funding that's out there for venture capital, just by having a woman in the founding group. So it's a really unfortunate distinction that we carry, but it's one that we have overcome greatly in our years that we've been raising.
How much money have you raised at this point? And then what are your revenues, profits shaping up to look like in the future?
So we're at the very earliest stage of our deployment. And so we closed in 2023 a $2.2 million pre-seed raise. This is from a variety of different investors coming from different angles, all of which have been incredible champions for our work. It was led by a group called Brooklyn Bridge Ventures. They invest only in New York City companies. So it's a fantastic sort of microsystem that we've started to establish of really cheerleaders and supporters of what we're doing. We've also raised non-dilutive capital, as I've mentioned as well. And it's putting that money together that allows us to then put the chargers in the ground, which is where we make our revenue. And then we're able to then invest that money back into the company to scale ourselves across the country.
I have to ask too, I mean, you're married. Did you ever think that you were going to start a company together, and how is it really working with your spouse to create something new like this?
Let's see, that's so many.
Nathan's quiet.
Yeah,
He's
no, I mean,
quiet.
actually, Tia and I met in undergrad, and so the basis of our relationship goes all the way back then when we were sort of working in the computer lab together. And then our careers took us in different directions, but I always admired what Tia was doing professionally and thought it'd be great if we could somehow figure out a way to work together. And it was just a matter of coming up with the right idea. So you can imagine this montage of me pitching different ideas to Tia
over the
years of like prefabricated apartments for Brooklyn, things like that. And eventually I knew that I was onto something when I had this idea for EV charging, but it's like connected to our house somehow. And then the two of us started to work on the idea together. We think, oh, well, it could be powered by solar panels. There's all sorts of things that you can do once you have this building connected to the charger model. And I think the simplicity of the idea and the urgency for how many people would need it, I think really got a hold of both of us. And I don't know, Tia's done a lot of great things in her career before starting It's Electric, and it's not like we had just decided based on the idea. It was a little combination of sort of seeing, oh, look what you've managed to build, in your time, working as a professional and what I've done, and can these two things come together as a business idea?
Exactly, yeah. We joke now, sometimes when you're talking to investors, it's a red flag. They say, oh, I don't want to invest in a married couple. That's too risky. And my retort is that you should only invest in married couples
Yeah.
because we've been together for over 20 years, and we're all in. We're not two kids that just met in a dorm. We're not going to walk away. This is our life. We have a daughter. She's technically a third founder. She's 9.
Aw.
She can do the pitch.
She can do the pitch. And she now has an entire sort of world of STEM that's opened up to her. She just made it into her elementary school's city finals for her STEM project. And I think that even though she had really strong parental role models before this, just by having 2 working parents, working in very demanding disciplines in New York City, I was in technology, Nathan was in architecture. I think that her seeing us put so much of ourselves into this solution that is designed to combat climate crisis, that we've made a real impression not only on her but on her schoolmates. We host field trips all the time, as much as we can, for her and her 4th grade class.
You're the cool parents.
I hope so. I mean, if that's what I can win with this, then I'll take it. Yeah.
How much, just to try and contextualize, how much energy does one of these chargers require compared to another sort of normal daily task? Like,
It's the same as a dishwasher.
Turning your lights on. Okay.
It's the same as running your dishwasher.
Really? I mean, that doesn't seem like a lot of
It's
electricity.
not. No, that's the beauty of what's called a level 2 charger, and not a level 3 charger. Level 3 charger is a fast charger. And listen, we need both in this country. We need level 3 when you're doing those long distance trips, when you're driving from, let's say, upstate New York down to the city. And we're building out across this country. The United States is putting investment in both L3 and L2. But the United States wants 7 times the number of L2 chargers than they do those fast chargers. And the reason why is because of the energy demand, right? We want to basically move everyone to these patterns where they're charging overnight. That's when peak demand is lowest. There's no demand charges that are going to happen in terms of people's electric bills. And it allows us to create this transition to electric vehicles in a way that is most compatible to what our grid can currently handle. We can't kind of wake up and snap our fingers and say there's going to be level 3 chargers everywhere tomorrow, because you literally can't do it. Like a level 3 charger uses as much, a 4-stall level 3 charger. If I just have 4 units of level 3 chargers, that means 4 cars can park there. That little 4-stall charging station uses as much energy as a 300-unit apartment building. The way that the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation refers to it, we want to go slow and low overnight, right? Just like you don't wake up in the middle of the night and say, is my phone charged? You're not going to wake up in the middle of the night and say, is my car charged? You're going to wake up, that battery is full, and you're off for the day.
How many hours does it take to fully charge an EV?
6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, same time it would take just again to park your car overnight.
Okay. And how many of these EV chargers do you imagine you will have on each street?
I mean, it depends on what city and what their priorities are, right? Do you want to talk about that?
Well, so there is a sort of it depends there. I'll make it simple. It's about 1 parking space for every 10 parking spaces will have a charger in it. That's a good ratio for a city. City drivers don't put that many miles on their cars, right? Because usually you have a fairly short commute if you're working in the city. And so you really only need to charge your car once or twice a week at the most. And so not every one of those 10 cars needs to park and charge overnight. In some neighborhoods, people might have longer commutes, or there might be a lot of rideshare drivers. In those cases, maybe you need to have maybe 1 charger for every 4 parking spots. So it depends a little bit on the driving behavior of the people in the neighborhood. But you shouldn't imagine that every single parking space on the street in New York City is going to need a charger. That won't really be needed for many, many years. And in the meantime, that sort of 1 to 10 ratio gets us very, very far in that transition.
I see. And how ambitious do you think the goal is to have half of all vehicles be electric by 2030? Do you think that's feasible? Do you think some of these goals that have been set are actually going to happen?
I have to tell you, I am very optimistic about it. And the reason why is I was very skeptical about EVs before I started driving one. And I will never consider getting even with the troubles that we have because we don't have that off-street parking spot, I will never consider getting a gas car again. It's just such a much better driving experience. And even though I have to kind of like plan a little bit extra to find times to charge the car, I still prefer that to finding time to go to a gas station. It's just a much better trade-off. And I think as people start to encounter EVs, they're going to get it. It's easier to maintain. There's no oil changes. There's no transmission that's going to break down. If you have availability to convenient charging, which we're trying to provide to everybody, then it's really much easier to sort of deal with fueling the car. And just in terms of like how the car handles and drives, they're just really fun. They're fun to drive. They feel more natural. They feel safer because there's that lower center of gravity. And so I really think that as in the United States, Americans actually expose themselves to the cars, they're going to get really excited about it. And I think that transition is going to move along pretty quickly.
Can you just walk me through the competition in the space? Who else is trying to sort of win market share in the EV charging space?
Of course, I mean, like it's a very wide field, so we want to kind of break it out. There's fast charging, and that's going to peacefully coexist with what we're doing at It's Electric, right? That's Electrify America, Tesla, even though Tesla is now taking a step back, as we've all seen in the news lately. And then there's sort of other level 2 chargers that are what's called destination charging, where it's at a shopping mall or a movie theater or a parking lot. And those are units that are really designed to not be on public streets. They're plastic, they kind of fall apart, they have a lot of maintenance issues, as I'm sure we've seen a million stories about how the chargers are very down or broken, or people are cutting the cables off, or the cable hits the ground and the cable breaks. We've designed a solution that takes all of that out of the equation. We're the only detachable cable solution, so the same way that you put your phone charger in your backpack when you go to the airport, you put the cable in your trunk or in your back seat when you're done charging. It's your cable, it stays with you, it stays functional, operational, clean. So we are literally the only curbside detachable cable solution that's behind the meter, meaning connects to the building in the country. We, as of right now, have zero competition in the United States. There's other curbside charging companies that we admire. Flow is a Canadian company. They're the ones who are responsible for the tall blue stations we have here in New York City. They've built a great product. It has above a 98% uptime, but they're a little bit big. They're a little bit larger than most city blocks would probably want to see on a residential context. So, we are definitely defining ourselves as the next generation of urban charging. We're excited to see other solutions that are going to come out and help, again, just make charging as ubiquitous as humanly possible, so that it's literally a no-brainer. People need to walk out of their door, see chargers, know they can charge anywhere that they're going to park, and then we're going to make this transition a lot more gracefully than we have in these first few years.
I'll just say that in the EU and the UK, there's tens of thousands of curbside chargers that look very similar to what we have already deployed. So just in the City of London, there's 22,000 curbside chargers already out there. So we're not doing something unprecedented in the world, although in North America, I think curbside charging is still not quite really understood. But we think that's going to change very quickly. And all of that expansion that you see happening around curbside over in Europe, that all happened in the last 5 years. So we're expecting to see a similar change start to happen here in this country as well.
There can be a really rapid transformation then. I'm curious too, there were reports a while ago of people installing solar panels on their roofs in the hopes that that would defray the cost of electricity. A lot of reports that maybe that didn't happen the way that those folks had expected. So when you talk about installing an EV charger on somebody's home, how much profit or revenue do you think they can expect to make as a result of that?
Yeah, if we have a single charger in front of, let's say, a 1 or 2 family house in Jackson Heights, Queens, or in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and that charger is being used about 60% of the week, that building's earning around $3,400 a year in passive income. Given that the average 1 or 2 family home's electric bill is around $1,800 in the United States, We're offsetting that electric bill, putting some extra money in people's pockets, all for them giving us permission to put a little 8-inch by 8-inch square on their curb that otherwise they really would have no other way of monetizing. So we like to say that we're not only bringing infrastructure into neighborhoods, we're bringing economic benefit, and we're also bringing jobs. We're doing a lot of workforce training in every city that we go into. So we're helping upskill labor and helping design the workforce of the future as everything becomes electric in cities across the US.
Where all are its electric EV chargers deployed right now?
So we've got hundreds in the queue, and right now we've got our first 25 going in the ground in Detroit. Detroit is lovingly known as the Motor City, and it's pretty soon it's going to be the electric vehicle city. So we have funding across the board from the state and also from local utility in Detroit that's looking to find scalable infrastructure that can be replicated across the city. So we're really excited because what's super cool about Detroit is that it's a city that's undergoing this huge revitalization, and the fact that our chargers can go anywhere where there's a building and a curb. Those buildings are a 2-family home, it's a donut shop, it is a wellness center, it is a church, it is electric, it's the IBEW Local 58 headquarters. Any building, literally, that has that building and a curb, we can put a charger in front of it in just 2 days.
Why did you decide to launch your company in Brooklyn and in New York City?
Yeah, I mean, It's Electric is a New York-born company through and through. I'm from downstate, my co-founder's from upstate, and we love this city tremendously. Mayor Adams always has his walk-on music. It's Alicia Keys, only in New York. So it's really true. It's one of those cities where you can make anything happen. And it's also, in some ways, the toughest nut to crack. So to make a second musical reference, we often say that we're doing the Sinatra principle, that if we can make it here, we can make it anywhere. And that's why we started in New York City. New York City wants to have, a 2050 goal of full decarb. And when you're decarbing a built environment, that's really challenging. You have buildings, but you also have transportation. So transportation is actually responsible for, I believe, 30% of greenhouse gas emissions in a city like New York. So that's something that people like you and I can take active participatory roles in. We don't need to wait for the city to tell us to do something. We can choose right now that we want to drive electric. When we call an Uber on our phone, we can pick green. These are all the small choices we can make to help cities reach these decarb goals together.
If I have private property in the city and I want to install one of your chargers now, can I do that?
You could, but you would have to do a lot of permitting, and it would take a really long time, and it would cost a lot of money. But what we're working on is building a complete system where we take care of all of that for you. So as a homeowner or a building owner, or if you own a church, or if you are part of a larger system like a school or a library and you want to see our chargers on curbside, we'll take care of all of that for you, and we'll do it at no cost. That's permitting, installation, maintenance. And you're just seeing that infrastructure either for yourself, for your tenants, for your community, and then that passive income that comes to your account every month just by allowing people to charge their EVs in front of your building.
Wow. So in the future, what do you think, in a year?
I mean,
I could call you and ask you to come.
I'd like to put that on the table. Yeah, let's say it's 2025. But in the meantime, anyone who wants to can join our wait list. We have a wait list that's over 1,000 properties right now that are looking to have our chargers installed across the United States. And it's growing, and we get word out about it just through conversations like this.
We are here curbside with an It's Electric vehicle charger. So Tia, walk us through how we use this.
Yeah, so this is the future of EV charging in cities. When you see this on your block, you know you have a place that you can park and you can charge and you can wake up to a full battery. The big thing that you'll notice is that there's no cable. Yeah. So the big deal is what we're doing is we're basically importing what's already happening in Europe and the UK, and we're bringing it here, which is a detachable cable. We like to say it's not weird, just European. And what that does is this allows us chargers to sit here like a fire hydrant, and whenever no one's charging, there's no cables that are exposed or visible. So when you do want to charge, however, you just go into your car, you have your tote bag that you take from your back seat, and you pull out your detachable cable.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like a pay-to-park meter, you know? It looks like something you'd see on the street anyway.
Exactly. It's designed to be in mind with the cities we love and with the blocks that we love. So it's really simple. You just plug in for your car, you plug in for your charger, and you're ready to go. And you're charging. So it's a matter of just plug.
This cable, though, you said that in the future you're going to be giving anyone who buys an electric vehicle one of these?
Yeah, if you live in a city where we have an electric charger, you just email us through our app and we send you that cable. As easy as you can Uber Eats a salad, we can get you that cable.